Welcome back. It's time for the News Schmooze.
Karm, what do you think of Jemana?
I'm not doing this week after week because she's lovely. Okay, we never met her yet.
We record out of sequence, so we have not. Usually Karm blows it, as you all know, and reveals how our guest was. This week, we have not interviewed our guest yet. So I threw a little curveball at Karm. She handled it well, but we're about to interview Jemana. But you already heard her because...
Now I believe that he doesn't feel well because he said I handled it well.
Karm, onto the news schmooze. I would be remiss if I did not start and get your take on the slap heard round the world. Now, you are a big movie buff. You watch the Oscars every year. You get into it. From what I understand, you watched quite a bit, but you missed the slap heard round the world when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock.
I have a comment on it.
I would love to hear it. What do you think of it? First of all, I still question whether it's real. I have a feeling it might come out that it's not real still.
May I say something interesting? There was a real, cognitive dissonance. The fancy word for saying I'm confused. The camera turned to, what's his name, Smith?
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Will Smith during the Oscars. By the way, I watched religiously for about an hour and 45 minutes, at which point I said, this is so boring, goodbye. And I missed the best part, which this was definitely, because otherwise nobody would talk about it. But this is what happened. I saw reruns, and they showed the face of Will Smith, and he is laughing at Rock's joke. He is laughing.
Yeah, that's what I don't get. He is laughing.
Wait a second. He's laughing. What is he? Is he like senile like me? Does he have a senior moment where the mood changes so rapidly, instantly? First, you laugh at the joke genuinely, and then you get up and slap the comedian. I see a lot of commentary, even on Facebook, how the stand-up comedy has died because nobody considers humor anymore.
I think they're going to try to cancel comics now. I think that's next.
Cancel comics, yes, because you know why? It's like
George Carlin is going to roll
like
over.
The kings. They are the present-day king's jesters.
Correct.
And the king's jester was the only one who had the right to tell the king the truth without being killed. And now it is happening to the stand-up comics. How can you be funny if you cannot insult anybody? That's why I'm not funny on these programs.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you think that...
I can't insult anybody publicly.
Did you think that... Do you think that Will Smith is in such a celebrity bubble that he's just completely out of touch with reality and just had a moment where he snapped? What's your... As a former social worker, what's your take on this? Which, by the way, I read a couple of stories. One was interesting. It was by a body language expert who analyzed it with the audio off and is convinced that it's all completely set up. And I tend to agree. It's almost like slapstick. If you look at it, like he comes up there and he winds up and then he swings and Chris Rock just goes like, that's not a normal reaction.
And then Chris Rock has a very clever line.
What did he say?
Something about live television. This is a prime example how live television works best or something.
Now, Jim Carrey, you know Jim Carrey, Karm?
The actor.
The actor, the comedian, he came out and said it was a spineless audience that they later applauded for Will Smith and said he was sickened by it. Meanwhile, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
basketball player,
who's become sort of the Yoda of our times. He's like a wise old man now. He wrote an article, an op-ed, and basically said that it was a petulant, as he says, a petulant little slap, but the ramifications were huge. He says it makes men look bad, it makes black men look bad, and all these repercussions. And he went on and on. It was like throwing a pebble into a pond, the ripple effect. So I don't know. I still don't buy it.
I tell you something. When I was getting my Oscar,
Yeah.
I was so darn stressed to compete with those other 4 people. I was out of my mind.
Do you think that's part of it? That he was so stressed out that he didn't know?
He was so stressed out that he was virtually losing his mind. You imagine all these years he has been in movies, and this was the first time wasn't he in this black, what is this?
Karm, you're developing this grunting, as you would say, a tick.
It's not a tick. Older people have dry mouth.
Yeah, it's not good to do on an audio-based show.
It's not an audio-based, they have to see me to believe it.
So, I don't know. I think we're going to still find out more about this. By the way, coincidentally, I purchased tickets to see Chris Rock April 14th at the Hard Rock, Chris Rock at the Hard Rock. And the minute this happened, ticket sales just soared. So nosebleed seats, which were going for like $90, are now going for $350. Now I'm contemplating whether I should just sell my tickets. But there's no way I can miss Chris Rock.
May I say something?
Yeah.
Whatever else this is, here is what it accomplished. It otherwise it was acknowledged before this happened that it was the most boring Academy Awards, and now a week later it's all over the place still.
That's why I think it's a setup. By the way, they said if Joe Rogan, some people
slapped Chris Rock.
If Will Smith slapped Joe Rogan's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a black belt in taekwondo, he would have sidekicked Will Smith into outer space. And by the way, that's another thing. Like Chris Rock's reaction is not normal. If someone slapped you as hard as they could in the face, would you just first of all, he rolls off the slap like a seasoned boxer, like Floyd Mayweather.
Was there even contact?
Yeah, I don't know. But I would have kicked him in the nuts.
Because the fight scenes in the movies are like fake.
Yeah, it could be. It looked choreographed to me. But anyway, we go on to
when you go on the 15th, see if that side of his face is swollen.
Karm, I will. This next story, as you can attest to, is very near and dear to my heart, something that I actually think about daily and which may be happening to me very soon because I'm on the border. From gas to groceries, soaring prices are straining households across the board. More than 3/4 of working Americans said that inflation has impacted their finances over the past year. This is according to a report by Salary Finance. While wage growth is high by historical standards, except in my household, it is not keeping up with the increased cost of living, which is rising at the fastest annual pace in about 40 years. Now, when wages increase at a slower pace than inflation, paychecks don't stretch as far. And because of that, workers are running out of money faster. Salary Finance has found that roughly 20%, that's 1/5 of employees in the country, 1/5 of all American employees regularly run out of money between paychecks, which is up from 15% last year. This is according to a survey of more than 3,000 working adults in February. Now, everyone's got a comment to make. People like my sister, stop talking about money. Other people say, stop talking about Joe Rogan. I will not be silenced, Carmela. I will not be silenced. Why? Why should I be?
What is it, virtue shaming? I like that term, virtue shaming.
But let me tell you something. It is a constant stressor.
Something?
A constant
I know you like
stressor.
to listen yourself reporting,
Yes.
but I think that even before this happened, that the prices went up. That was preceded by COVID. Many people could not work because they were in jobs that, like restaurant workers, they had no jobs. They were depleted completely. This came, and they were always living marginally. And now, on top of it, came this thing that the prices went up just when they started to maybe get jobs. The prices went up, and they're still, running out of money after the 15th of the month. And nobody seems to care. This is how the system works. In the meantime, the big corporations, and I hate the big corporations already.
Yeah, so do I.
And I had very little passion in that area. But they are making more and more profit, and the little people...
Me.
You are the smallest of the little...
Well, let me tell you something. My midlife crisis is not wanting to drive a Lamborghini. My midlife crisis is wanting to buy groceries without having to calculate numbers in my head. And let me explain. This
Joel,
week,
don't ever cry with 2 loaves under your arms, because there are people who are in worse positions.
But let me
than
just tell you, so this past week, we had lunch with one of my oldest friends in the world, Rob Feldman, may he rest in peace, with his wife and his daughter.
He was envious of a dead person.
Rob Feldman, the highest in Highland Park, with all the Dave Camps of the world and the Steve Isaacoffs of the world, Rob Feldman, the highest IQ. He could have been a Nobel Prize winner in physics, Nobel Prize winner in whatever he chose. But he chose money. And I never realized this, but I had a conversation post our conversation. He always focused on money. And my midlife crisis is that I never focused on money. And now I've got 3 young kids that require money constantly. I went as an ATM machine for Halloween a couple of years ago as a joke.
That was the funniest.
And my kids were the money.
No. The kids, yeah.
The kids were the cash coming out of my ATM. But my point is this: I never was aware of the importance of money and finance, and I blame you. And I blame you. You sent me to Brandeis, huge waste of time. I grew up in an academic town where education was important.
Whining is off the air, okay? Whining is
on to the next story.
On the way home.
I'm just saying that the harsh realities of financial well-being.
May I go back to Robert Feldman? Because
yes, may he rest in peace.
I don't know any Latin, but I know there is a Latin saying, which I will translate loosely: never say anything bad about the dead. Robert Feldman, who was a brilliant mind, he went to South Africa and he helped them. He was one of the first computer experts in the world, and he helped them set up their computer system. Then he went to some developing countries and he helped them do the same thing. He wasn't, it was for him a sport. He never used this money. He had a lousy old car, speaking of Lamborghini.
Right, his wife said he would never buy a new car.
He wouldn't buy a big house. He was a very modest person. It was more like a mathematical exercise. His grandfather was a mathematician. His father was our friend. He was a brilliant guy. Well, may he rest in peace, and let's change the subject.
I'm bad at math, too. On to the next story. Internal White House records from the day of the attack on the U.S. Capitol were turned over to the House Select Committee, and they show a gap in President Trump's phone log of 7 hours and 37 minutes, including the period, let me finish, when the building was being violently assaulted. This is according to documents obtained by CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa and the Washington Post associate editor who you may have heard of, Bob Woodward. The lack of an official White House notation of any calls placed to or by Trump for 457 minutes from 11:17 a.m. to 6:54 p.m. on January 6, 2021 means there's no record of the calls made by Trump as his supporters descended on the U.S. Capitol, while battling overwhelmed police and forcibly entering the building, prompting lawmakers and Vice President Mike Pence to flee for safety. Let me hear you spin this.
Okay.
And by the way,
I am not going to spin this.
Bolton said that they were using burner phones. Who was in the administration?
Okay, and I will tell you how they did it.
Yes.
I will tell you how they did it.
How?
He borrowed somebody else's phone, and now they have to subpoena those people's phones, and they will see on those phones when were the calls made and in what direction and so forth. Now, the problem with the subpoena is that the Justice Department. I don't know how you got this. I'm an expert on this.
Okay,
The Justice Department has to approve. Let's say if they say we are not turning over our phones.
Correct.
People. Let's say he asked us. Let's say he asked the janitor to turn him over his phone. Okay.
Yeah. What's your point?
The point is that they also have to find out whose phone he used, and then that person may just rather go to jail than turn over his phone.
Maybe it was Jeffrey Epstein who lent his phone. What's the bottom line is Trump was absent for this whole time. Incommunicado.
No, he was not absent. His phone was absent.
He was incommunicado. You're a good lawyer, Karm.
What?
You're a good lawyer.
Well, I'm not defending him.
Is Teflon Don going to get off on this one too?
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
This is such a lack of imagination. This is like, so he didn't use his own phone. He used somebody else's phone, and they discovered he used he didn't want to use his own phone, so he used somebody else's.
So you're saying Teflon Don is
it's smooth
and clean. He's going to get off, is what you're saying.
Well, I don't know.
Even though he orchestrated this entire thing.
Depends on how the people who are near him are still loyal to him or not.
I want to get this next guy on the show. I've already emailed the great Stephen Cohen to see if we can make this happen. Aliens are not only abducting humans, but are using mind control to integrate themselves into Earth societies. This is what... Don't shh me. We had the great Dr. Avi Loeb on.
Yeah, but he didn't talk about this.
He didn't talk about but this is a professor who happens to be Jewish.
What
Dr.
has
David
that got
Jacobs,
to do with the price of rice in China?
Who's at Temple University, one of the premier universities out of Philadelphia in the entire United States. My point is that this guy is
okay, what does he say?
No shoe salesman.
Then how are they doing
so listen.
this? How are they doing
So Dr. Jacobs, a professor of history at Temple, specializing in ufology, has written several books on the subject of alien abductions, interviewing alleged survivors to gather and compare testimony. Speaking on the documentary Extraordinary, The Revelations during UFO Week on Blaze, the so-called expert has set out his findings, which he has argued from a frightening conclusion. Is that English? I don't know. He claims that by abducting humans from the planet and subsequently using mind control, an alien species is preparing to take over the Earth. The professor said he had spoken to a huge number of abductees who told them that in the future, they would quote unquote have a job to do. How do you reconcile this? This guy is a legitimate professor. Yes.
You know what my first thought?
Yeah, I want to get this guy on the show.
The aliens are coming not soon enough. It can't be worse of them than the mess that we are creating here.
Aliens sell. So I want to get this guy on. People love this stuff.
I know.
Do you believe in this?
No.
You don't think there's aliens?
No. That they didn't penetrate it. I can see that they could penetrate through, for example, subliminal messages, even today, everywhere. I start to hum the...
So what this guy's saying, it's mind control. What do you think that is? What do you hum?
Wait a second, what is that anti-psoriasis song that they always sing?
I don't know.
I already started to hum it and I don't have psoriasis.
I don't know.
No, the point is that there are subliminal messages that can influence people's minds, but we are focusing on very phantasmagoric ideas because we have a hard time dealing with here and now. And I think that's how people escape everyday.
Would you be interested in speaking to this Dr. David Jacobs?
Most certainly, since I know that we get like 2,000 hits on a really stupid thing like this, and nobody listens to something that has to do.
That's intelligent.
What?
That's intelligent.
That's more intelligent.
Well, I've already asked the great Steve Cohen, who helps us with booking, to see if we can get Dr. David Jacobs. So stay tuned.